Okay, I'm going to break this drawing down into steps that are way easier to follow than you might imagine, so that you can have a go, create this, and amaze yourself. Okay, so the app that I'm using is Procreate, and I'm using the default A4 canvas, which is 297 by 210 millimeters at 300 dpi. I'm using the sRGB code, the one that ends in 2.1. It's here within Procreate on the list. In terms of the brushes, if you've updated Procreate, then you have more than one brush set. So go to the top if you've updated it. Back to libraries. I'm using the classic library. If you haven't updated it, then you'll only see the one set of brushes anyway, so don't worry. I'm only going to be using the default brushes. In terms of the colors, I've pre-selected a color palette. There is a link down in the description that takes you to my Patreon, and you can download the color file for free to save you some time. Otherwise, you can just go to the value section. Again, the codes are in the description. You can just put them in the box one at a time and press enter and piece it together for yourself. I'd like to say a massive thank you to those people who support me over at Patreon. It makes a massive difference, so thank you so much. And it is the place you can obviously support what I do here, but also gain access to exclusive content, such as extended versions of most of these tutorials. Another way of supporting the channel is just simply to subscribe, give the video a thumbs up, and then maybe leave me a comment, maybe a suggestion of what I could do in the future. And with all of that said and done, we're going to get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is rotate the canvas to the portrait orientation. I'm going to go to my colors. I'm going to use the first color on the top row. I'm going to drag it from the color circle into the canvas, and it flood fills the entire canvas. Now, if your colors look different at any point during the tutorial, don't worry, it's probably just my camera, and sometimes screens are calibrated differently as well. Okay, I'm going to go to the layers, create a new layer, layer 2, and I'm going to use within elements the clouds brush. I'm going to use the 10th color on the top row. I'm going to have the brush size maybe about 20% and about 70% opacity. And then top corner, we'll zoom in a little bit. I want to place some of this color, and I can do it in patches, just fill it in completely at the edges, right in the top corner at least. And then we can allow it to just break apart a little bit. I might just run it across the top for the most part. And then we just start bringing it in. Allow some gaps. We don't want to close it up completely. Maybe we'll close it down a little bit more to the right. Once we've got it so far, maybe just so we have some sections here where we haven't done anything, and then we'll just do some sections in the middle there a little bit, like that. I'm then going to go to the adjustments, the Gaussian blur, and blur it across to maybe 10% and deselect. I'm going to keep separate layers, so I'm going to create a new layer, layer 3. Same brush, same color, but I'm going to turn it down from 20 to 15% size, still at the 70% strength. And we can be a little bit more controlled. Start piecing in more sections of this cloud. Double it up. Bigger concentrations of it. Shut down some of the gaps. Maybe I'll turn it up actually. Let's go for maybe 30% size, but I'm going to turn it down to about 20% opacity. And then down in this bit, we can just use it to kind of blend things in a little bit more. So it's more gradual. Just allow it to soften out. Turn it down again, maybe down to 5% size, and back up maybe to 50% strength. And then we can really carefully just start adding a little bit more strength to some of these shapes. Maybe 5% is a little bit small, 8% maybe. It is pressure sensitive, so the more you press, the darker it gets. So I've got it at 50% opacity, but depending on how you apply it, it will change. Bring some of these in, firm them up a little bit more. You can always reduce them if they seem a little bit strong in places later. Maybe shut it down a little bit in that upper area. I want to concentrate the light into this area and focus the eye to the lower parts of the image mainly. Again, maybe just close it down a little bit at the top. With that whole layer, I'm going to go again to the adjustments, the Gaussian blur, blur it across, maybe a bit less than 10% this time, maybe about 6%, and deselect. I might just condense them down. So I'll take layer 3, tap on it and merge down. We don't want too many different layers. I'm going to create a new layer again. So again, we have layer 3. I'm going to go back in with the clouds brush. Let's go for the second color on the top row. 5% size, maybe 30% strength. And it is lighter. It's not going to be dramatic because we've only put it down to 30. But we can just start to work in and out some of these spaces in a kind of center area, slightly offset in my case. Now if your cloud shapes and arrangement is a bit different, it doesn't really matter, it's not the end of the world. Let's go to the third color. Again, concentrate a little bit more in this area. Have it trailing off as it goes further off. In fact, we can have like little lines that literally kind of trail off. Build up the intensity of light in just this specific area. Just going over it quite a few times, really. Let's go to the fourth color. We're doing it in increments, subtle changes. I think sometimes it's better just do it gradually. Fifth color. Again, building it up. This is quite a bit lighter, so just go a bit more carefully with this lighter color. Maybe just nibble away at that edge a little bit more. Get it closer to the kind of purpley color in places. Sixth color. And we're just really bringing out some intense light now in this specific area. Guess maybe we've got a moon behind there. We don't need to do a distinct circle to represent that. We'll go to the seventh color, just in the center of there and the center of there, bringing out some of that white, and I think that kind of works. Adjustments, Gaussian blur, and again blur it in, this time to about 5, deselect. So I'm going to create a new layer, layer 4, tap on the N, and then we can scroll down to a different blend mode, which is the add blend mode. Change this to an A. We'll go in with the soft brush with an airbrushing, and we'll go for the first color on the bottom row. We'll put it up, maybe 10% size, and really quite low, maybe about 5% strength, opacity. Tap it into that area, kind of just binds it together better. Turn it down to about 3%, and again you can just channel this off to the edges a little bit more. Push it away. I think I'd actually like to go back to layer 2, slide and duplicate it, which doubles up the strength of it. I don't want it to be that strong. I'm going to go back to the bottom version of layer 2. Maybe go to the adjustments, the Gaussian blur, blur it across a bit more to about 8%. And I can also go to the layer, tap on the N, gives you the opacity slider for the layer. You can take it all the way down to nothing. But I think I want it there about 40%. And when you untick it, you can see the value that it has actually brought out a bit more intensity to that cloud, which I think works better. Okay, I'm going to go to the top and create a new layer up there, layer 6. I'm going to go in with the soft brush with an airbrushing. I'm going to use the 8th color on the top row, 10% size, maybe 20% strength, opacity, and then about 2/3 of the way down or 1/3 of the way up, perhaps even a little bit less than that. Do a band of this color. Now it's going to blend upwards a little bit, so we'll just end up with a thin band of the original pink. 9th color, and then just at the bottom of that we can bring in more of this dark color. Go over it a few times, bringing in this dark color in the bottom area. Perhaps even go to the 10th color, a bit higher, 20% size. Let's put it higher on the opacity as well, 50% opacity. Let's just double it up, build it up. We're getting a bit of a transition, a bit of a fade. I'm then going to create a new layer, layer 7. I'm going to go in perhaps with a medium hard brush with an airbrushing. 2% size, 100% opacity. So I'm going to just to the left of the moon, do a vertical line. Doesn't have to be the neatest thing in the world. Zoom in. And I want it to look like a ruined kind of structure in the background, but I do want some kind of consistency to it. So I'm going to do a horizontal line across there, maybe a wider one there, and maybe an even wider one there. So it feels balanced. But then I want it to be kind of crumbling. And this is the part where you can introduce some random shapes, bring it down equally there, and then some random shapes where it's just uneven perhaps. Bring it down there. Again, the way it kind of then proceeds and interacts with the next stage, bring it down. Maybe a last stage here. I'm probably going to have it obscured by a more foreground structure anyway. Bring it down. And it starts to disappear into the landscape generally. And it's going to be covered, obscured by other things. So don't agonize over it too much. Maybe a couple of little sections here that stick up. Less of one there. I'm going to slide and duplicate that. Top version, transform, freeform, move it, shrink it, maybe flip it horizontally, right down there, and then we can go back in with a brush, maybe just give that a bit of a personality of its own, give it a bit of a spire. Again, we could have more sections that stick up maybe. We don't need to spend too long on it. It is a distant suggestion of structure, so let's just go over some of the detailing of it there and just change it up so it's not the same as that one. But again, it's going to look run down anyway, so just kind of some random shapes. If you feel like it's leaning at all, then go in and just adjust it, add whatever you need to take away from that look. I'm going to take the top version, merge down so that they're on one layer. I think they're too big generally, so transform, freeform, reposition so they're back there a little bit. I'm also going to go to the adjustments, the Gaussian blur, and blur it in slightly, maybe 3%, and deselect. Let's move it slightly more this way, so it's not quite under there, but almost about there. Okay, we're going to create a new layer, layer 8. We're going to go in with the first colour on the middle row, medium hard brush with an airbrushing, 3% size, 100% opacity, and we're just going to do it in the centre of our image to begin with. So I'm going to do just a little rectangle. So once we've got this rectangle, I'm going to do lines that go up. Once you've got a kind of relatively tall section here, I'm going to do a curve and stop about here. We're creating an arch, and we'll do it again. Stop about here, hold it so you can rearrange it. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Nothing about what we're creating with this structure is going to be perfect anyway. It's going to represent a ruin. I might just make this a little bit thicker. Again, sketch freehand is absolutely fine. And maybe I just slightly straighten it up at the top. You can go with the eraser to the hard brush with an airbrushing. 100% opacity in a small size, 2%. Maybe just slightly a bit of a steeper line as it gets to the very top. We can just perfect that a little bit. Yeah, just a little bit neater, perhaps a little bit more controlled, so it just has a slightly sharper peak. It doesn't need to be, it could be more rounded than that. Slide and duplicate it, transform, flip it horizontally, and then just move it across. Connect the two together, deselect, tap on the top version and merge down so they're together. Then on the transform, distort, bring it up from the bottom right corner just a little bit, straight up, not too far, just so it creates a bit of a tilt. And then the top left, down, straight down. Keep this line vertical, just so again it's a little bit of a tilt. Creates a bit of perspective. Deselect. I'm going to slide and duplicate that layer and then go to the bottom version, transform, put it on uniform this time, and shrink it down. I want it to be a little bit lower so that it's a step down from this point, and obviously shrunken, but then also pushed off to the right. So you can see it step down as well as shrunken, somewhere about there. And then with the medium hard brush, we can just fill it in. We've got a nice shape. I'm going to go back to layer 8, tap on it and put on the alpha lock, and I'm going to go in with the second colour on the middle row. Go with the soft brush this time. 3% size, maybe 20% strength. I just want to introduce a lighter tone that goes up with that shape. And then here as well. Like that. Maybe turn off the alpha lock. Maybe turn down the opacity to 15% and the size down to 2%. And then just a little bit indented from that edge, we can just do in kind of pieces. A little bit of a secondary arch in there, and maybe a bit less on that side because it's more in shadow, but just a suggestion of it like that. Tap on the top version, merge down. That's all on one layer now. I'll create a new layer, layer 9. Going with the first colour on the middle row. Still with the medium hard brush with an airbrushing, 3% size, 100% opacity, and we're going to go from that point and we need to just bring some lines straight down. In fact, I might put that a little bit bigger, 5%, and then you can bring it down, hold it till it snaps, and if you can't quite determine the vertical line, with your other hand, one finger down, and then it snaps to the perfect vertical. You can do the same on this edge. Hold it till it snaps, one finger down, and then you know that it's perfect. Same on this side, straight down from the light blue, hold it till it snaps, one finger with the other hand puts it as a perfect vertical. Try that again. There. You can always add to it, it doesn't matter if it's a neat edge, as long as we've got it as a guide, it's quite useful. Like so. I'm going to tap on that and merge down. Now with this whole shape, I want to put it in context. So I'm going to go to the transform and uniform. I need to make some decisions about how big it's going to be. So I want it over here. I might extend the legs of this down a little bit, and that's fine. Reduce it down. I want it almost so it's just big enough for that little structure there to fit inside. Move it off this way, past the halfway. I want the peak of it there on the inside to just be a little bit higher than that point. Maybe about there. And again, back in with the medium hard brush, we can just, I mean, it seems like a very big brush now at this point, but it doesn't matter. You can bring it down, maybe reduce it down for this side, 3%. That's fine. Doesn't need to be the neatest. We're then going to slide and duplicate that layer, transform, keep it on the uniform, move it over to this side, shrink it down. I want it to be 2/3 of the height, maybe smaller. Move it this way. Might go to the distort, again from that top left bit of it. Bring it down, squash it in from the side. You rearrange it however you need to. I'm going to put it over there, a bit closer, because I don't want to obscure that too much. Maybe down there. And simply slide and duplicate that one. Grab it. We have the other arch more over this way. Put it on uniform. Shrink it down a bit more. We'll get the perspective, so it's just shrinking it as it goes further away. So the peak of it should be lower down, like that. Then we're going to go to the original one, layer 8, bottom. Slide and duplicate it. Transform. Move it over this way. In fact, we're going to flip it horizontally. Reduce it down. We're going to have an arch on a different facet of the building. We'll see it in a slightly different way. So reduce it down. So that's the gap between them. So I want it higher than those ones, but not as high as that. So somewhere between, maybe about there. Deselect. So let's just think that one's lowest down, a bit higher. You can see how it interacts with the ones in the background, and then this one is higher than those two, but not as high as that. Now I'm going to take all of those and merge them together, like so. I'm going to tap on it and put on the alpha lock. I'm going to go back to the second colour on the middle row with the soft brush, with an airbrushing, lower on that 2% size, and about 30% strength. I'm just going to bring some of these lines up. Maybe there's a slight separation there for this one. Maybe just one line for that side. Let's turn it down. Lower on that 2%, and we just need to articulate these a little bit. Again on the outer edges so that it follows and extends on that section. And over here, just concentrate on the left side mainly. Just so in a moment, we're still going to notice it. I'll do a little bit on that right leg as well, because we're going to do something that makes them less visible. So I'm going to create a new layer. I'm actually going to put it underneath layer 8. So layer 9 is underneath layer 8. I'm going to go in with the first color again on the middle row. Let's go for the medium hard brush with an airbrushing, 5% size, 100% opacity, and I'm just going to start filling in gaps in places. So that one, for example, and this one, and I can take it down to the ground, take it up, maybe turn it down a little bit, 3%, just so I can be that bit more in control of it. Add some to this side, bring it down. And then they're just going to sort of taper in, do a few points, bits of kind of rubble down here, and the bottom of the edge of it doesn't matter too much. Same for this one. Just a kind of sloping it in. Bottom edge of these I actually want to be a bit higher, so take that up a little bit. Similar for this one. And then over at this edge we'll just have some ground and fallen architectural blocks, for example, and then bring it up, and then we're going to just have a little bit of a something here, bring it across. Again, if yours is not exactly the same, it doesn't matter, it's a kind of real dilapidated structure, so it doesn't need to be exact. Again, try to bring in a bit of a suggestion of this kind of direction. So maybe just nibbled up here a little bit higher. And then it kind of merges in with this one. Bring it more up. Again, some little bits that stick out, stones. Bring it across, nice big piece up here. Introduce some cool kind of angular shapes. You don't want it to be too rounded, so straight up, straight across in places. But if it's really weathered, been kind of half knocked down, then it doesn't need to be too much in the way of straight lines, but just the suggestion here and there that you have a kind of stone that sticks out. And you can appreciate that kind of real ruined look. Let's take it a bit higher on this edge, make it a bit thicker. Don't create any overly neat edges. Bring it over there, maybe on this side. Kind of have it sloping down and then dissolving into the ground. A little bit above the arch. The arches are really strong structures, so it tends to be that you have them at the core, and then other things sort of cling to it. Not that I'm an expert in architectural structures or features, but just seems to be they seem to preserve quite well. Let's turn it down 2%. Little bits that stick out, and you can fine tune this, and that's absolutely fine. I'm just going to turn it up again at maybe 10% size, and just at the bottom edge I want that to just go off, and then I can always fine tune the lower areas. So what I might do is just drag into that bottom area, get rid of that little division there, and it's more of a silhouette that is useful. Now that it's mainly there, I might go to those two layers, take layer 8, tap on it and merge down, so they're all in one layer now. And I might also go to the transform, freeform, pinch it in. Again, I've got more control at exactly where it's going to be in the scene. Look at it in the overall context. I think it probably needs to be a bit higher so it's closer to this feature. And then I might also on that note go to layer 7, tap on it, rearrange it, move it further up if necessary. I feel like that's a better arrangement. It gives us a bit more space at the bottom, so back to layer 9, back in with the medium hard brush at 100%, and we can just add a bit more dark to accommodate those changes, like that. And we can see the overall thing in context, which looks really nice. I'm going to go tap on layer 9. In fact, I'll do it on a separate layer, so let's create a new layer, tap on it and put on a clipping mask, which links it to layer 9, but it is a separate layer. And then with the second color on the middle row and the soft brush with an airbrushing, 2% size, 30% strength, we'll zoom in. And we can just start tapping in the suggestion of stone kind of brickwork. And think about the angle, so it's going to be slightly angled. we know that this was angled, so the line that would cut across is slightly angled as well. Don't worry about the edges. We can go and tidy them up a little bit. Just a few highlights at the top. Makes sense that the light would just about catch it there. Turn it up higher on the 2%, just tapping. Again, doesn't need to be overly neat. Lighten it up over at this edge maybe. Go over it, adding some variety of texture. Turn it down again, lower on that 2%. Again, we can just build in some, in fact, even lower. 2%, add in some extra individual highlights of bricks, stones here and there. A bit more down here, lights coming through. Actually fits the structure, and we're not spending a long time on these features. I don't really feel it's necessary, just a suggestion of those kind of textures. We might even soften them in a little bit. I'm going to turn that up 3% size, still at 30% strength, and I might just add some layering to this. In fact, even just soften it in quite a bit for that background. It's tilting away, so it should be softened. Less black, creates that perspective. Look it further back. You can see the impact that has. It leans it off this way. Maybe just a little bit here as well, not too much. Like so. Let's turn it up 4%, and maybe this area generally. Add a bit more of that general colour. And once we've kind of given it a fairly even coverage across, I could even go in with the eraser more now. So put the eraser on the medium hard brush with an airbrushing, 2% size, 100% opacity, and I could just go around the edges of the arch, anywhere where I feel like it's a detail that needs to be a bit more preserved. Just create some separation. Big chunks missing in the areas up here. I might go to the soft brush again actually. If it looks a bit too jarringly different than the other textures. Lower that 2% size. Chip away at an edge here. It's just going to be a shadow on this side maybe. Again, just around the arch. Don't want to lose that feature. Again, maybe just the underside of the arch. Again, just add in some missing chunks here and there. That's absolutely fine. And it's just looking more and more weathered and ancient. I quite like that effect. Okay, I'm going to go to the adjustments, the Gaussian blur, and just blur it in slightly, just so it's even more subtle. 3%. Go back in maybe with the, let's go, well, I could go for the third colour. I'm going to go for it a bit more with the fourth colour. Soft brush with an airbrushing, 2% size, 30% strength. And we can just pick out one or two features if we don't want to lose them. We can make more of them. Just in places. Inside the arch there, just pick out some of the extra details. A little bit can go a long way. Especially because it's mainly a silhouette and you're not actually seeing all of the details. So those little suggestions, when it's a small part of a bigger thing, go quite a long way and really work. Just a few highlights like that. Okay, so I'm quite happy with the overall look of the structure. Perhaps there could be another section here that's just a little bit more distant. So go back to layer 7, create a new layer, layer 10. I'm going to go in with a third colour this time, so I will use it. Maybe the medium brush with an airbrushing. 3% size, 100% opacity. And there might just be another section back here. And so there's just a suggestion that it kind of continues to go off. We don't necessarily see all of it right here. Again, just remove bits you don't like. I want it to go right to the very edge. Back in with the brush. So once we've got that structure, tap on it and put on the alpha lock. I might go in with maybe this purple colour, the 5th colour. 4% size, 20% strength. Maybe just on one edge there, adding a bit of light generally from the scene. Bring that in. I'm going to take all of those architectural things, so layers 9 and layer 10, pinch them together, so they're all in one layer. The alpha lock is on. If it isn't, put it on. I'm going to go in with the 6th colour on the middle row, soft brush within airbrushing, 10% size, 10% strength. I'm just going to bring like a mist through here. Again, it can just creep in and obscure bits over at this side. It's quite a nice effect. Don't need to overdo it though, just a little bit like this, and that works. I'm going to go to the top, create a new layer, layer 9. I'm going to go in with the darkest colour we have, which is the 8th colour on the middle row, and we're going to go to the inking syrup brush. I'm going to put it at 50% size, 100% opacity, and then from this side you press on a bit, we start to bring a kind of meandering tree trunk, and it's going to be super gnarly, so it's okay if it kind of dwindles off. I might have it getting narrower a bit sooner than that, so it's a bit trial and error. Let's have a branch that comes in here, and it is really responsive to pressure, so just twist and turn some of these branches off. And then the main trunk, just go over it, meander through. I'm going to have it disappearing near the top. With all branches and tree trunks, they start thick and then get gradually more narrow as they go, so just make sure that it's consistently getting thinner. As long as it does that, and keep yourself in check with that aspect, then almost any direction you take with it is going to be fine. Main trunk, be careful it doesn't go thick again after you've started to make it thin. Don't allow it to go thick again. It's very easy to do. And if you're struggling with that, especially in the finer branches, then turn it down, maybe 20% size. Go in, be mindful of that. Add some finer branches. Twist and turn. If you need to go in with the eraser, put the eraser to the same brush, the inking syrup brush, 100% opacity, smaller size, maybe 20%. You can always just shave off some of these branches if they're too thick in places. Just be aware. Back to the brush. A little bit here and there is fine, because sometimes you get a section of a branch that can be quite gnarled up, and it will create an artificial kind of thicker area. So you can get away with a little bit, but as a general trend, they should always continue to get thinner. To allow this to sort of real change direction, I want this to be as gnarly and sinister looking as possible. So real zigzagging around, change of direction all over the place. This is not a graceful looking tree. You want it to look really kind of mangled up and gnarly. This juncture here, just have it splitting off. Fine branches coming off from there. Once you're happy with the overall structure, I'm going to tie it into a bit of ground, and you're not going to see all of it yet, so I'm just going to concentrate on the other side as well. Again, bring in, I've got it down to about the 20% size, and actually works for me. I can control it a bit more. I really have to press on harder to get a thicker shape, or I'll just go over it a few times to create that thicker tree trunk. I don't care if it obscures a lot of this structure. Again, your tree doesn't need to be slavishly the same as mine. It could be its own thing. Again, just stick to the rule that it needs to get thinner as it goes up, but allow it to have its own character. Again, make sure it's thickest where it joins. Just takes a few minutes to really get all the finer little twigs and branches, and that's fine. I'll bring it up to the top of the canvas. If you end up with a thick section at the top, then you just need to retrace and thicken up everything so that it would support it and look realistic. Bring it in almost like lightning in the scene, really. Just wiggle it around, create that effect. I'm going to turn the brush size down, maybe to 5%. And get in there and just do some fine tuning with smaller branches. It's not a quick stage, it takes a little bit of time to add all the little finer twigs, but do it, it's worth the little effort that it takes. You can add as many of these as you want. You can keep it relatively sparse, or you can go in there and just add a ton of these little fine branches. It's kind of up to you how far you want to push it. I've just done a few, and I feel like that's probably enough. I'm going to take that layer, I'm going to go to the adjustments, perspective blur, and then from the center just drag it out. And it just, if I do it to about 10%, deselect, and it just creates a little bit of movement and just a little bit of life to them, so they don't look quite as crispy. I think that works better. Now I'm going to go back to layer 3. I'm going to go in with the airbrushing soft brush. I'm going to go in with the 4th color on the top row, 10% size, maybe 30% strength, and I'm just going to build in a bit of light down here. Coming in, maybe we've got 2 light sources. I'm going to go to the 5th color, soft brush, turn it down, 2% size, still 30% strength. Bring in maybe the setting sun, and we've got a real kind of almost supernatural feel. So this is the moon, and then we've got a sun down here, which is perhaps just reflecting off some of the clouds there that just run through. Again, just some lines that drag through there that we don't really need to make a big deal about it. It's just subtly there. It gives quite a nice effect. Dragging through there. Let's go to the first colour on the bottom row. 5% size, still at the 30% strength, and just add some of this warmth in the background down there. Just a little bit. Let's go up to layer 4, which had the add blend mode on, and with the same colour, maybe 4% size and 10% strength. Tap on a little bit there, bring out some of the light in and around that area, just to intensify that kind of glow there just a little bit. And it's quite interesting to have 2 light sources. So we'll go to the 7th, layer 7 again, and we'll go in with the syrup brush, and we'll go for the 5th colour on the middle row, 50% opacity, 10% size, and we can just create some trees and things that are just maybe visible through the gaps. We need to overly do them. Just some suggestions of things back there. Could be quite nice. And down in this section too. Let's put it 100% in fact. We know where we're at. Just a few bits. While we're on the same layer, we'll go to the 10th colour. We'll just bring it down, merge it with the background there a little bit. Perhaps go in with the 5th colour, and let's just go to the airbrushing soft brush. We can just sort of soften these together. It works. In fact, tap on layer 7, put on the alpha lock, and again with the 5th colour, I'm just going to make the top of these spires a little bit darker and contrast a bit more. We've only got it at 10% opacity. Let's whack it up to 20% a little bit more. And a little bit darker at the top. Makes them feel like they have a bit more presence. That works better. Let's go to the very top. Go to the wrench, add, copy canvas, and paste. Now, the top layer is now an inserted image, but we don't need all of it. So we'll go to the selection, rectangle, and grab a rectangle so that it has a bit of a gap between the bottom of that arch and where the rectangle is selected. And we can go, tap on the inserted image and clear, which you won't see much until we go to the transform, and then you can see it's clipped it there. So we can flip it vertically and bring it down so that we create a nice reflection down here. Line it up about there. Adjustments, motion blur to the side, about 15%, and deselect. Create a new layer on top, layer 11, and again we're going to go in with the darkest colour, so the 8th colour on the middle row. Go for the medium hard brush, 3% size, 100% opacity, and then, well, we need the trees and land features to come down here and interrupt that a little bit, so 2%, across the water, and then back this way, back up again, 3%, bring it back in, another little section creeping out. We can just create little bits that join at the sides, and then more little bits that just creep out into the reflection. Stuff in the water makes it less clear. Let's turn it up again, 4%, down from the bottom of the tree, bring it down into the water, control that size, 3%, with a few kind of jagged shapes that just come out, interrupt that reflection. Nice big shape over here, 4%. We can fine tune this, obviously. We definitely need some bold sections in there. Create some rocks and things that just jut up. Control it, different sizes, 2% up to 5%, depends on what you're creating. Okay, nice big stones. And once we've got that in place, I noticed that the inserted image has a really strong line there, which we don't want, so we can simply go to the inserted image with the eraser. Put the eraser on the airbrushing soft brush, 3% size, 40% strength, and we can just go in there and remove. Not a problem at all. And we'll stay on that layer, but we'll go in with the brush, and we'll go in with a lighter colour. So let's go for the 7th colour on the middle row. In fact, the soft brush would be good. 3% size, 15% opacity. And we'll just have some more low-lying mist and fog. Again, this is part of the reason why we're building up a really nice atmosphere. If it's going to have this kind of strange, creepy-looking fog coming through, let's put this up. 6% size, a bit more fog. Really is the making of the scene. Creates the atmosphere. Mist it out. Perhaps we don't want it there on the tree, so if you've done that, well, stay with the inserted image. Let's go to the 8th colour. Let's just 100% opacity, reclaim the tree. That's fine. On layer 11, I'm going to go in with some lighter colours, show some highlights. So I'm going to go for the 10th colour, 2% size with the soft brush and 30% opacity. And then we can just build in some highlights on the water, some textures. Let's turn it down even more, 20%. Bring some of them up here, highlighting the edges of stones, whatever. Don't have to specify exactly what everything is. We're just creating a kind of disturbance. Textures over on this side as well. More over here. You can go around individual stones and things. Be a bit more considered if you want. Or you can just be a bit more slapdash, and then you can always go back in with a black and pick out some of those individual stones again. I'm going to try the organic rainforest brush with this colour, 15% size, low on the 2% strength, and just create a little bit more noise on the ground level. Just soften it in. Like I say, can go in with the black again, the 8th colour, with the airbrushing. Where were we? Oh, there we are. Airbrushing medium brush, 2% size, 100% opacity, and then wherever you want there to be clearer rocks, you can just go in and reclaim them. That isn't a problem. Easy enough to do. Maybe turn the opacity down 60%. Build them in more. Let's go for the 9th colour, the middle row. Soft brush with an airbrushing, 2% size, 30% strength. Again, I'm just going to use this now to pick out some sections in the water. It just cuts across different areas, maybe just a concentration in and around where the little bits stick out into the water. Just go around the edges of it. You get to play around with your environment. In fact, I'm going to go for a lighter colour. Let's go back to the 7th colour in the middle row. Bring some of these lighter tones in as it goes further back. Back up with the soft brush, 5% size, 15% strength. Again, just add a bit more light in there, a bit of lightness in the mist. I'm going to go back to layer 9, tap on layer 9 and put on the alpha lock. I'm going to go in with a slightly lighter colour, so maybe the 2nd colour. In fact, let's go for the 4th colour on the middle row. Soft brush with an airbrushing, 2% size, 20% strength. And then just on the tree, in places, and I don't want to do too much of this. Certainly as it comes down towards the crown, we can just add in a couple of highlights, and honestly, that's probably enough. I'm going to leave this tutorial here at this point. I hope you've enjoyed following along. Don't forget to hit subscribe, leave me a comment in the comment section, maybe a suggestion of what you'd like to see me draw in the future, and I shall see you back here soon for another tutorial. Bye for now.